Comment down below where you're watching from and don't forget to like and subscribe if you hate Karen. I had just joined the quarterly budget call, suit jacket pressed on the back of my chair, when the vibration of my smartwatch whispered that the motion sensors at home were tripped. With the regional director droning about ticket sales for summer camp programs, I thumbed open the live feed from my garage server. The main camera, angled across the subterranean lap pool I'd built beneath the patio, painted an impossible picture. Strobes of mint green and fuchsia ricocheted off the tile walls, bounce lighting a gyrating crowd that should never have been there. Front and center, wearing sequined shorts and an inflatable flamingo like a crown, stood Karen, the next-door neighbor who once filed an HOA complaint because my hibiscus hedge looked tropical in a temperate zone. My pulse spiked harder than the zoo's cheetah enrichment readings. Water splashed over the coping as revelers dove in, red Solo cups arching through the air. Karen waved a Bluetooth mic, shouting drink specials, completely certain the space, and the 6-foot depth limit sign, belonged to her. On the conference screen, someone asked for my input on deferred maintenance at the aviary. I muted my mic, pretending to cough, and zoomed the feed. Shallow breaths fogged the lens. I could almost smell the coconut vape clouds drifting across my chlorine. A rented fog machine hissed beside the filtration panel I'd installed last winter. This was beyond a spur-of-the-moment dip. Karen had hired a DJ, his booth perched inches from the emergency shutoff breaker, and strung LED rope lights across the ceiling trusses I'd painstakingly powder-coated. The kicker. A banner reading, "Private VIP," dangled from my life ring hook. I closed my eyes for a 2 count, reopened them, and flicked to camera 4 for the driveway angle, 40-plus cars crowding the curb, one of them idling on my lawn sprinkler head. The meeting droned on in my earbuds, but my focus was already elsewhere, silently drafting a response far more memorable than any late-night noise citation that a low chime signaled the next slide of the budget presentation, attendance numbers for June's Wild About Reptiles camp. But my eyes never left the mosaic of security feeds. Karen's illegal nightclub was blooming like algae in my pool's turquoise glow. Laser beams sliced the damp air, turning my carefully installed moisture-sealed LED fixtures into a frenzied light show. I zoomed in on the floating DJ platform, a flimsy plywood sheet balanced over 2 plastic kayaks I kept for maintenance. The artist, wearing mirrored goggles and a neon tank that read "Drop Beats Not Bills," punched his laptop, unloading bass so deep it rattled my iPhone speaker at half volume. Karen leaped beside him, missionary of revelry, clutching a novelty megaphone shaped like a flamingo's beak. "Everybody scream if you hate the HOA." The crowd obeyed. 50 throats released a howl that vibrated the camera housing. I could almost hear the echo through my garden gate. Irony wasn't dead. Karen, queen of petty complaints, railing against HOA restrictions while standing in a pool she didn't pay to excavate. I toggled the audio from camera 3, the one hidden behind the citrus pots. Chatter spilled in like spilled soda. Girl 1, "Can you believe this place is under his patio?" Guy 2, "Bro, he's some kind of reptile whisperer. Bet he's got a Komodo dragon in the basement." Girl 1, "Komodo? Sick. I wanna see it." "No, you really don't," I thought. On the conference screen, my CFO, Alyssa, called my name. "We need your approval for the extra $12,000 to repair the Lemur Island rope bridge." I unmuted, forced an upbeat tone. "Looks reasonable. Let's move forward." If only approval for private property invasions were that easy. I scrolled to the backyard feed. Karen's guests had spilled onto the lawn, trampling the zoysia sod I'd nurtured to emerald perfection. 2 men jousted with pool noodles. A third balanced a keg atop the marble birdbath my late grandmother once admired. Something snapped inside me like a gate latch slamming shut. I thumbed through archived footage, every minor incident Karen had orchestrated over the last year, a ticket from code enforcement because my garden shed's eaves cast a shadow on her begonias. The time she snipped my decorative bamboo because it whistled in the breeze. Weekly notes demanding I stop feeding the neighborhood crows because they looked at her funny. Tonight trumped them all. Trespass, property damage, open container violations, each a rope she'd tied into a noose of entitlement. Instinct said dial 911. But I pictured the dispatcher, yes, ma'am, we'll send a unit. Then the report, the formal statement, lawyers, HOA arbitration. By then, the water would be tepid beer and the tile etched with glow paint footprints. A different idea surfaced. Equal parts risky and poetic. Rocky. 12 feet of pure, prehistoric audit. I minimized the home loader screen, pulled up the zoo's internal database. Rocky, Crocodilus porosus. Health check cleared this morning, weight 1,187 pounds, appetite vigorous, temperament highly food motivated but responsive to trained cues. Perfect resume for surprise security detail. That's when the regional director asked for any creative outreach ideas to boost ticket sales. Without thinking, I said, I might have something unforgettable. A few faces on the video grid perked up. Alyssa flashed a curious thumbs up emoji. Back on the security feed, I watched Karen hoist a beach ball the size of a yoga dome and spike it into the crowd. A cheer erupted as it slammed a suspended heat lamp, showering sparks over the water. She didn't notice, she was busy live streaming herself on every platform imaginable, her voice rising above the synth line, #pool takeover. #live your truth. #he won't do anything. That last tag bit into me. I literally fed crocodiles for a living, people paid money to watch me do it, yet Karen somehow believed I was powerless. Another text buzzed, HOA reminder, late night noise ordinance begins at 10 p.m. The group thread was lighting up with complaints. My fellow homeowners begged for intervention. I typed, working on a solution. The clock read 1:59 p.m., barely mid-afternoon. I still had 6 hours before the gates closed to the public at the zoo and 12 before the noise ordinance curfew. Plenty of time if I moved now. I muted the call permanently, dropped into Slack, and pinged Dave in Reptile Transport, need your truck tonight. Special pickup. Details IRL. A typing bubble popped, then, if this is about that neighbor of yours, I'm in. Dave remembered the hibiscus hedge saga all too well, he'd helped me replant it after Karen's covert pruning. I glanced once more at the pool feed. Karen had climbed onto a floating swan, my floating swan, and spun circles while chanting something about 5-star after-party energy. Guests hooped. Water lapped the coping, sloshing gallon after gallon into the overflow drains. I locked my phone, stood from the desk, and straightened the collar of my zoo logo polo. Apologies, I typed in the meeting chat, urgent animal welfare matter. I'll file my notes later. No one objected. In fact, Alyssa sent a quick, good luck. Luck wasn't what I needed. I needed a crocodile with stage presence, and a neighbor about to learn the difference between can't and won't. The parking lot behind the reptile house always smelled faintly of river mud and thawed rodents, but that afternoon it felt like the command deck of a covert operation. I jogged past the Komodo enclosure, phone pressed to my ear, heart thudding a rhythm somewhere between dread and gleeful anticipation. Dave picked up on the first ring. Rocky, he asked before I could speak. Rocky, I confirmed. Tonight. Dave whistled a single note, low and impressed. You finally going there, huh? Karen's jumped the shark, I said. Time to introduce her to the crocodile. A forklift beeped in the distance as keepers moved hay bales for the giraffe's enrichment. I slipped through the service corridor and into the dim cool of the quarantine bay where Rocky currently lounged in a fiberglass transport pond. 12 feet of emerald mussel rose just enough for one yellow eye to breach the surface, regarding me with the same calm appraisal I'd seen 100 times during feeding sessions. It was the look that said, I don't care why you're here, I only care if you're edible. Perfect mindset for tonight's debut. Dave appeared behind me, all brawn and tattoos of extinct reptiles. He offered a fist bump. "You got paperwork?" "Drafted a temporary relocation form." I handed him a clipboard bearing the zoo letterhead. "Emergency structural assessment at the exhibit, technically true. I'll run night vision checks while Rocky's off-site." "Nice." Dave scanned the page, then scribbled his initials. "We'll need the heavy crate, the hydraulic lift, 2 roll cages of frozen tilapia, and enough chain to moor a tugboat." I pinged inventory. "Everything's in Bay 3. Dave eyed me. "You sure about the optics? HOA might not appreciate a saltwater apex predator as a guest speaker." "HOA will appreciate the quiet after Karen's rave shuts down," I said. "Besides, Rocky's trained. Heating lamps at 90, target pull cues, no sudden movements. We've done school demos with worse odds." Dave grinned. "All right, Captain. Operation Pool Party commences at 1900. Bring the transport permits, I'll prep the dart gun just in case." At 6:45 p.m., the zoo gates clanged shut behind the last minivan of field trip kids. The whole park settled into its dusky hum, crickets in the wetlands boardwalk, macaws croaking bedtime gossip. We backed Dave's flatbed rig to the quarantine bay, lowered the ramp, and winched Rocky's crate into place. The crate itself resembled a steel coffin with vented slats and the comforting smell of bleach. Rocky slithered in with minimal prodding, more intrigued than irritated by the promise of motion and the chicken quarter Dave dangled as incentive. Paperwork pinned, tailgate secured, we rolled out through the service gate, headlights off until we cleared the perimeter. My smartwatch buzzed, motion sensors tripped again back home. I risked a glance at the feed. Karen had upgraded the playlist to an EDM remix featuring dolphin squeaks, inflatable palm trees bobbed like metronomes around the pool. A digital counter in the stream's corner claimed 1.2K viewers. "Your live stream material now," Dave said, eyes on the road. "I'll send them an encore." 35 minutes later we idled half a block from my house. Streetlights cast honeyed pools on the asphalt, illuminating a conga line of sedans and hatchbacks crammed bumper to bumper. Somewhere inside the gated backyard, Karen's bass still punched the night air. Dave cut the engine. "You get the driveway gate code?" he asked. "I am the gate code." I tapped my phone, the smart latch disengaged on cue. The plan was simple: back the truck into my driveway, reverse straight through the alley gate, and position Rocky's crate within 10 feet of the pool coping so the ramp formed a bridge. Rocky would do the rest, slow, majestic, menacing without ever needing to snap those jaws. Ideally. We rolled forward, 5 miles per hour, tires crunching gravel. No one outside noticed, they were all clustered around the subterranean staircase Karen had left propped open. Multicolored smoke billowed upward like volcanic exhaust. Dave nudged his chin at the chaos. "Bet you a month's coffee the sprinkler heads toast." "Make it 2 months." I keyed open the garage, revealing shelves of pool chemicals and my logoed supply lockers. We killed the headlights, relying on the ambient glow pulsing from beneath the patio. A shirtless guy wandered past the truck, too busy FaceTiming to realize Rocky was now 3 feet behind him splashing antiseptic solution inside the crate. "Ramp down. Locks off." Dave raised an eyebrow. "Showtime." I grasped the target pole, an 8-foot fiberglass rod with a bright red float on the end, and gave 3 gentle taps on the crate's floor. Rocky knew the cue: follow and you'll be fed. Metal scraped as the croc's belly slid across the crate floor. The truck's suspension sighed. Then Rocky appeared, snout first, armor-plated tail sweeping, each skewt catching slivers of porch light. He halted halfway down the ramp, tasting the air with open jaws, 6 dozen ivory daggers glimmering. Dave whispered, "He's gorgeous when he's about to ruin somebody's evening." We guided Rocky inch by inch toward the staircase. From below, bass hammered like a second heartbeat. I imagined Karen announcing another round of Jell-O shots, blissfully unaware that prehistoric justice was descending. Halfway to the patio door, Rocky paused. Something new scented the breeze: chlorine, alcohol, human skin oil. His pupils narrowed to slits. The transition from docile tank dweller to apex enforcer was almost imperceptible, save for the deliberate set of his legs. "Easy, big guy," I murmured, target pull hovering like a conductor's baton. Dave swung the side gate shut behind us, sealing the exit. No turning back. Phone buzz, security feed from camera 3. Karen poised on a floaty throne, shouting, "He won't do anything," again. My thumb hovered over the record button. Not yet. Let her have one last anthem before the drop. Rocky resumed, tail swishing silent arcs. The ramp clanged gently against the concrete lip of the subterranean stairwell. Somewhere down in the neon abyss, a guest popped a confetti cannon. Tiny paper stars drifted upward, brushing Rocky's snout before dissolving in drool. Dave let out a breath. "This is either genius or the final entry in your performance review." "Genius," I said, even though my pulse pounded. HOA said keep noise down. "I'm just bringing in a natural deterrent." Rocky took the last step. The abyss swallowed him, 12 feet of scaled diplomacy descending into Karen's kingdom. The party's fate now hinged on how quickly revelers recognized that the giant prop wasn't inflatable. I wiped sweat from my brow, tapped record, and followed the crocodile into the base-soaked glow. The zoo's evening hush felt like an accomplice. Floodlights dimmed to their amber night cycle as keepers finished rounds and clocked out, leaving only the rhythmic hum of filtration pumps and crickets chirping from the wetlands exhibit. I headed for administration, clenching a manila folder stamped emergency relocation, priority in red. My pulse kept pace with my footsteps. Tonight's draft choices were boldness or regret, and I'd already chosen bold. Inside the glassed-in office, Dr. Reena Patel, our chief veterinarian, hunched over radiographs of a Galapagos tortoise. Her pointer finger traced calcified edges while she dictated notes into a recorder. Before she could greet me, I slipped the folder onto her desk. "Structural stress fractures in the croc habitat," I said, adopting the calm urgency of a man who'd rehearsed every syllable. "Moisture penetration behind the viewing window. Engineering report just came in. We need Rocky out for 48 hours while facilities reseals the fiberglass seam." Patel's brow furrowed. "We inspected that tank 6 months ago. No pressure irregularities. New data." I flipped open a blueprint with highlighted stress points. Courtesy of a design software mock-up I'd rendered over lunch. "If the seam gives while patrons are on deck, litigation will gut us." Patel sighed, rubbing her temples. "You want to house a 12-foot saltai in quarantine, baby? We just cleared B for the albino python." I had anticipated that. Alternate site, private enclosure with certified water and heat control. Nearby, minimal transport distance, no guest interaction. Patel's gaze sharpened. "Your place?" "Yes. I've got a climate-regulated subterranean pool, built to USDA specs. Rocky's been down there once for a photo shoot, his stress hormones stayed baseline." That part was true. She exhaled slowly. "Timing?" I glanced at my watch, 4:47 p.m. "We move him before night shift security logs changes to the roster. I'll file a formal incident ticket by morning." Patel glanced at the X-ray again, tortoise now forgotten. "All right," she said. "But I'm logging this as temporary critical care. 48 hours, max. Send me water quality stats every 6 hours." "Absolutely." Relief loosened the knots in my shoulders. "I'll update the chondrovinyl records, too." Patel chuckled. "You're the only keeper who still calls them chondrovinyl sheets. They're flex glass panels now. Old habits." I gathered the folder, heart hammering. One signature down, one to go. Half an hour later, Dave and I trotted down the service corridor toward Don Barlow, head of facilities, clipboard-wielding sentinel of pipes and pumps. He was prepping a crew to replace cracked skylight panes in the aviary dome. "Don," I said, waving papers like surrender flags. "We've got a suspected leak behind the Croc exhibit window. Can you team up with safety to verify?" Barlow frowned. "Leak? The sensors haven't tripped." "Hairline," I improvised. "Just enough to seep. Want to catch it before thermal cycling widens the gap." He tapped his pen. "We're slammed until dawn. If it's hairline, it can wait till morning. That's why we're extracting Rocky, to lighten water pressure. Less risk until you look." I folded arms, a mild challenge. If the pane fails, that 200-pound lizard strolls into the gift shop. Barlow's eyes widened. Liability trumped fatigue. He signed the clearance log. "But this better not be like the penguin filter fiasco," he muttered. Dave snorted as we retreated. "Penguin filter fiasco? Long story. Involved baby shark on loop and 5 gallons of blue dye. Wish I'd seen that." Dave unlocked the transport bay. By 5:30 p.m. the sun sank low enough to spill molten gold across the tarmac where we staged the equipment: hydraulic lift, winch straps, portable heat lamps, and 2 cattle-grade aluminum panels we would slide into the crate rails as safety partitions. Every step followed by the book protocol. If anyone reviewed CCTV tomorrow, they would only see best practices. Rocky floated motionless, nostrils just above waterline, like a sentient submarine. The moment Dave cracked the lid of the tilapia tub, Rocky's tail flicked. Smell first, thought second. We lowered the crate ramp until it kissed the water's edge. "Target pole ready?" Dave asked. I nodded, raising the 8-foot rod with its red buoy tip. Tap 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 on the crate floor, feeding cue. Rocky slid forward, jaws parted in lazy expectation. His scuts scraped the fiberglass with a sound like deck chairs dragged over concrete. At the ramp's midpoint, he paused, half suspended above water, 45 degrees of primeval poise. Dave held his breath. Rocky continued, sliding into the crate's steel belly. The hydraulic lift groaned as 2,000 pounds, crock plus crate, rose toward the truck bed. Dave locked the braces, checked tie-down chains, and affixed the secondary latch because Rocky had once sprung the first with a single tail whip. I checked my phone, another motion alert. Karen's stream now had stage light set to pulsing rainbow, partygoers frolicked like human skittles in my pool. Comments scrolled: "Who owns this place? HOA is gonna flip LOL. HOA guy here," I typed anonymously. "We have a surprise act later. Stick around." Satisfied, I opened the lid of the tilapia cooler. The scent turned the air briny. I tossed 3 icy fish onto the crate floor, reward for Rocky's cooperation. He snapped them up, teeth clicking like bone china. Dave looped ratchet straps across the crate and patted its roof. "We're mobile." We climbed into the cab. Diesel engine rumbled to life, dashboard clock ticked to 5:54 p.m. Traffic upstream looked mercifully light, everyone heading toward downtown for fireworks on the river. Perfect cover. As we rolled toward the service gate, sunlight flashed off the rear vision mirror, catching my reflection, calm, focused, maybe a little unhinged. But this was the line zookeepers walked every day. Blending respect for apex predators with public safety theater. Tonight, the theater moved off-site to a venue where the star attraction had teeth older than civil law. Dave eased onto the side road, gears clunking. Next stop, Poolpalooza. I grinned at the horizon. Karen's rave was about to meet its natural predator, and the universe, just this once, seemed perfectly symmetrical. Dave eased the diesel rig past the mailbox that still bore scorch marks from last year's 4th of July mishap. Courtesy of Karen's legal indoor fireworks. We shut off the headlights and coasted the last 30 yards in neutral. The party's bassline oozed through the night like distant thunder, rattling the aluminum slats of Rocky's crate. Our driveway gate recognized my phone's Bluetooth ping and folded open. Motion lights along the eaves blinked on, revealing a college-age trio making out under the Japanese maple. They froze, dazed by 13,000 lumens of LED truth. Private residence, I stage whispered through the rolled-down window. Path back to the street is that way. They scattered, shoes thumping along the brick path. Dave smirked. Party's losing weight already. We swung wide and reversed through the side gate, metal hinges squealing protest. The trailer's rear corner brushed a stack of ceramic planters, toppling them in a slow-motion avalanche. The crash vanished beneath the DJ's next drop. Apparently, nothing could outloud Sin Wave bass tonight. The subterranean pool's staircase hatch gaped like a carnival funhouse entrance, neon steam curling upward. Guests in LED sunglasses stumbled in and out, never noticing the 2-ton crate gliding across the lawn on pneumatic dollies. Dave killed the engine. Ramp? Ramp, I confirmed. Together we slid the aluminum gangplank to meet the crate door. I opened the hatch to Rocky's enclosure. 2 golden eyes glowed within, reflecting the laser beams flickering from the hatch below. Target pole ready, Dave said. I nodded and rapped twice on the metal floor, our cue for Rocky to advance. The crate lurched as his mass shifted. There's a special hush that descends whenever a top predator decides to move, every subconscious prey reflex in a human body whispers stillness. Hair on my forearm stood at parade rest. The crate door lifted, chains rattling. Rocky's snout emerged, sutured jawline shining under yard lights. He paused at the threshold, tasting night air thick with beer, chlorine, and coconut vape. A low rumble pulsed in his throat, the reptilian equivalent of curiosity. Dave whispered, "Showtime." Rocky's front claws gripped the ramp. Each skewed on his foreleg shone like hammered bronze as he shuffled downward. The plywood trembled but held, we'd over-engineered for exactly this weight. At the ramp's base, he slid onto the grass, blades bending beneath half a ton of ancient design. I swung the target pole in a gentle arc toward the stairwell hatch. Rocky followed, hypnotized by the red buoy tip. We guided him to the lip of the stairway, 3 feet wide, 10 steps down, terminating at the pool deck. It wasn't the Nile Delta, but it would do. Just then, a burst of laughter swelled from below. Karen's voice cut through, #nobody can stop us. The crowd roared. Dave snorted. They're about to meet nobody. We positioned Rocky's snout at the top step. He peered downward, nostrils flaring at the humid plume of chlorinated air. A flick of his tail defined the moment between planning and execution. With improbable grace, Rocky descended, claws clacking the concrete steps like slow applause. I tapped my smartwatch, camera 1, focus stairwell. The feed popped up. From the partygoer's angle, the stairwell glowed cobalt. Fog machine haze diffused a halo around Rocky's silhouette as he crept into frame, bigger than any special effect. No one looked, yet. Dave nudged my shoulder. Trailer's empty. Time for Phase 2. Phase 2, I agreed. He threw a camouflage tarp over the crate, removed the ramp, and rolled the trailer forward, hiding evidence behind a rhododendron hedge. I followed Rocky at a cautious distance. Halfway down, synthwave bass made the steps vibrate under my boots. I raised the target pole like a conductor's baton, steady, reassuring. Rocky's pupils shrank to pinpoints under the party strobes. He advanced onto the pool deck, tile still damp from cannonballs. His tail swept a bucket of glow sticks into the deep end with a plunk that, amid the noise, registered as nothing. And then we waited for awareness to bloom, like lightning finding ground. Rocky paused at the water's edge, head low, upper jaws forming a serrated smile. A laser array traced pink triangles across his armored back, every skewed catching light like dragon scales. For 5 breathtaking seconds, the crowd remained oblivious. Were they too deep in synthetic euphoria? Perhaps. But apex predators have patience measured in geological time. Rocky possessed the luxury to wait. Across the deck, Karen perched atop an inflatable swan, filming a live selfie. "Check this VIP glow, fam," she squealed, voice auto-tuned by her phone app. Dozens of followers hurled emoji hearts across her screen, tiny reactions to a moment about to mutate. Rocky's yellow eyes tracked the nearest noise, a guest in gold lame trunks gyrating dangerously close. The man held a piña colada, flamingo-shaped straw bobbing. He pivoted, made eye contact with Rocky, and froze mid-thrust, carnival rhythm suspended. Instant evolutionary math flashed behind his pupils, big teeth plus wrong address equals run. His plastic cup dropped, splashing neon drink across the tile. The clatter sliced the dance floor ambience. Heads pivoted. Gasps escaped lips coated in glitter. "What the?" someone began. Rocky lifted his torso, revealing a ridged belly plated like medieval armor. The DJ's next beat hit, but dancers scattered before it landed. The gilded trunk guy bolted, tripping over an extension cord. Speakers screeched feedback, LED rope lights flickered. Karen looked up from her phone, first annoyed, then baffled, eyes zigzagging to align the reptile before her with the reality she preferred. Is that real?" Her voice cracked. Rocky inched forward. Water lapped at the coping with each footfall. Karen's inflatable swan bobbled, she clutched its neck as if the vinyl could outrun Cretaceous muscle. Screams erupted, not the choreographed "everybody scream" from earlier, but primal shrieks wired into human hindbrain. Guests surged toward the stairwell, trampling bucket hats, stepping on each other's glow-in-the-dark slippers. Confetti canisters exploded underfoot, adding smoke to pandemonium. The DJ abandoned his plywood island, laptop tumbling into the pool with a hiss. Sparks leapt, breaker tripped, sound silenced. Only Karen's live stream remained, phone still rolling as she squealed, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god," to an audience that doubled in seconds. Rocky hissed, low freight train timbre, mouth agape. His palate valve flexed, sensory pits shimmering in strobe light. He did not lunge, there was no need. The crowd delivered the theater for him. I positioned myself at the stairwell entrance, remote in hand ready to disable lasers if needed. Dave stationed at the deck's far end, tranquilizer dart loaded should Rocky decide humans warranted a calorie splurge. But Rocky appeared indifferent to flailing mammals, his fascination lay with chlorinated water, perhaps reminiscent of exhibit pools. He lowered into the shallow end, tail crossing tiles like a living boom barrier. Water crested over the coping, soaking Karen's personalized beach towels, embroidered with Queen of Everything. I admired the irony. Above, overhead camera feeds captured multi-angle chaos, guests vaulting patio furniture, one slipping on nacho cheese, another climbing a palm print tapestry only to rip it from its moorings. Real-time schadenfreude. Karen finally abandoned her swan, scrambling onto the ledge. Waterlogged wedges slapped tile as she backed away from Rocky's unblinking stare. Phone still filming, she pointed at me. "You. This is illegal. I'm calling HOA security." "I am HOA security tonight," I said, voice calm. "Meet Rocky, loss prevention specialist." Phone viewers exploded with laughing crying emojis. Karen sputtered, "You can't just bring a dinosaur." "He predates zoning bylaws," I replied. Meanwhile, Rocky drifted deeper, content as a yacht at anchor. When he surfaced, only his nostrils broke the waterline, classic ambush posture that scattered remaining stragglers. Dave whispered through the comms earpiece, "Should we cue the exit?" "Not yet," I said. Lesson in progress. The backyard had become a funnel of terror. 10 guests jammed the stairwell, clogging its narrow throat. Partygoers clawed up steps, shoes abandoned to speed. Someone yanked the fog machine cord, adding a ghostly plume that made every smartphone flashlight bounce like will-o'-the-wisps. Above ground, neighbors emerged onto lawns clutching bathrobes and phone cameras. Sirens, distant but growing, indicated someone had dialed 911, perhaps multiple someones. Fine, paramedics could treat sprains and bruises while serving as impartial witnesses to Karen's unauthorized jamboree. Back poolside, Karen stood pinned against the retaining wall, glitter mascara streaking. "Keep him away," she wheezed. I stepped forward, brandishing the target pole. "Rocky, hold." His jaws closed at once, obedient to the cue drilled over years of conditioning. I pivoted to the crowd blocking the stairwell. One at a time, single file. Panic ignores reason, they shoved anyway. Dave raised his dart gun. "Drop the jello shooters and move, people." That cut through. The human current reversed into a manageable trickle. Guests spewed apologies mid-flight, "So sorry, man. Didn't know it was private," as if private property signs were theoretical. Rocky remained midway in the pool, eyeing the ripples left by swimmers' frantic kicks. I tossed a tilt-fin tilapia chunk into the deep end. He pivoted, submerged, and snapped it with sonar precision, an aquatic mic drop. Outside, first responders pulled up, lights flashing red and blue across our cedar fence. Officers poured into the side gate, weapons holstered but hands hovering. Leading them was Officer Langley, yes, the same HOA enforcement enthusiast from the Azalea incident, now moonlighting in real policing. He gripped his belt, scanning the deck. "Sir, what in the emergency relocation exercise?" I interjected, flashing laminated zoo credentials. "Facility leak drill." Langley blinked. "With civilians?" "Uninvited civilians," I said, angling my head at Karen. She cowered behind a deck chair, face the color of soggy tissue. An EMT evaluated sprains, another guided a sobbing influencer up the stairs. Dave briefed a wildlife officer about Rocky's calm state and our exit plan: feed, coax, crate. The officer, impressed, murmured, "I've seen worse at spring break gator farms." Langley glared at Karen. "Ma'am, did you authorize this gathering?" Karen sputtered. I was doing community outreach. Pool shares build neighborly bonds." She attempted a smile, glitter lipstick smeared like clown paint. Langley pointed to the swarm of beer cans, glow sticks, and trampled begonias. "Looks more like trespass." I pushed a wet towel toward Karen. "You can wipe off the entitlement. It's water-soluble." Gasps from lingering guests accentuated the burn. Karen buried her face, towel muffling a muffled sob. Dave radioed, "Crates ready." Rocky finished his fish and surfaced under a floating swan corpse. Plastic neck punctured, deflating with a comedic squeal. "Let's load our star," I said. Together, Dave and I ushered Rocky to the ramp. Officers formed a perimeter, onlookers filming for posterity. Rocky ascended, dripping moonlit diamonds. The hydraulic winch groaned, crate swallowed prehistoric royalty once more. Karen peeked over the chair. Is he gone?" "For now," I said. "But he loves return engagements when the music's too loud." One no longer inebriated DJ swore never to ignore noise ordinances again. Langley cited Karen for trespass, noise violation, and unauthorized assembly. Total fines, more than her monthly vape budget. As the police lights faded, Dave secured the last latch. "Mission accomplished," he said. "Not quite," I replied, surveying the battlefield of beer cans and soggy confetti. "We've still got cleanup." With guests evacuated and Rocky crated, the backyard resembled a storm-struck carnival. Paper lanterns bobbed in the pool, LED bulbs sputtering like dying fireflies. Karen lingered near the gate, mascara tracks drying under porch light. I approached, boots splashing puddles. Karen, you'll arrange restitution. She opened her mouth to argue, then saw Officer Langley hovering, citation pad in hand. Her shoulders wilted. Fine. To start, I said, a formal apology to the HOA and reimbursement for damages, landscaping, pool acid wash, drained filtration lines. Itemized invoice to follow. Langley added, and community service hours for the noise violation. Karen gave a small nod. I didn't think it'd get out of hand. Entitlement often scales faster than risk assessment, I said. Consider Rocky tonight's reality check. Dave returned with push brooms. Cleanup crews assembled, he joked, tilting his head toward Rocky's crate. We opened the crate door just wide enough for Rocky's snout to poke out. His presence motivated everyone, including Karen, to rake confetti and pile empty cans with remarkable speed. Eventually, debris formed a mound by the gate. Rocky eyed the shiny cans, perhaps evaluating them as metallic tilapia. I slipped him one last fish as reward, then sealed the crate. Langley escorted Karen out. Dave and I hosed down the deck, suds spiraling into the drain. In the hush that followed, frogs resumed croaking somewhere beyond the fence, nature reclaiming the decibel count. I shut the pool lights. Blue glow faded to velvet darkness. The crisis, like foam on a wave, receded. Midnight melted into pre-dawn stillness. Dave backed the trailer to the driveway's edge, Rocky's breathing rumbled like distant surf. Exhaustion hit my spine, but satisfaction buoyed me. We'd achieved a symphony of lawful mischief without a single tooth mark on civilian flesh. Karen's live feed, now viral, had pivoted from party vibes to cautionary tale. Comment sections overflowed with memes. Inflatable swans morphing into gators, captions like VIP stands for very ignored predator. Public sympathy skewed toward the zookeeper who protected his property. Inside, I drafted a brief for the zoo board, temporary relocation successful, structural inspection reveals no substantial defect. Croc returned 4 a.m. True enough once we delivered him back at dawn. Dave loaded the last trash bag. You think she learned? I shrugged. Behavior change in humans isn't as simple as operant conditioning. But the stimulus was strong. He laughed. Nothing says, respect the boundary, like a metric ton reptile. We guided Rocky's crate up the ramp, hydraulics whined under weight. I secured the lock. Overhead, the sky blushed pale pink, dawn tiptoeing in. Sprinklers clicked on, mist cooling the air, washing away stale beer fragrance. I glanced at Karen's darkened windows, curtains drawn, house silent. Maybe she wrestled with embarrassment or maybe plotting new grievances. Either way, the ecological niche of her arrogance now faced a keystone predator. Ready? Dave asked. Home stretch, I said. The truck rolled out, tires crunching fresh sprinkled gravel. Behind us, the pool deck lay pristine, as though the night's chaos had been a fever dream, except, of course, for the watermark memory seared into every phone camera. Sunrise painted the zoo's service gate in tangerine light. We returned Rocky to Quarantine Bay B, heat lamps blazing. He slid into the pond with a satisfied grunt, sank, and vanished beneath ripples. I logged water quality stats, attached photos, and thanked Dave with a coffee strong enough to raise the dead. Driving home, I rehearsed statements for HOA and, should she try, Karen's inevitable complaint. Yet a curious calm rode shotgun. For once, reactive exhaustion replaced simmering irritation. I had confronted overreach not with bureaucracy but with biology, and the world kept spinning. Later that morning, an official HOA email hit my inbox. Subject, last night's disturbance and outstanding gratitude. The board praised swift, creative action that likely prevented property damage and personal injury. Fines were levied against Karen, emergency bylaws were drafted limiting guest counts, decibel levels, and specifically, though humorously, unauthorized parties involving inflatable poultry. I laughed aloud at that one. A softer ping delivered a private message from Karen. I'm sorry. Won't happen again. Are we okay? A humble overture or damage control? Hard to say. I typed back, we will be, after the invoice is settled. Take care. I added a smiling gator emoji. Stepping onto my patio, I inhaled the scent of wet tile and citrus blossoms. No lasers, no fog machine, only birdsong riffing with distant traffic. The pool water, shock-treated at dawn, shimmered crystal clear. A lone glow stick bobbed in the deep end, a fluorescent relic of hubris. I skimmed it out, dropped it in the trash, and locked the hatch. For a zookeeper, boundaries are sacred, between habitat and visitor, between wild and tame, between jest and harm. Sometimes the lesson requires claws and a toothy grin. Rocky would forget the outing by lunchtime. For Karen, I hoped the memory endured. If not, I mused while sipping coffee, the zoo's relocation roster always included repeat educational outreach. And Rocky, sunning under his heat lamp, looked undeniably ready for an encore.